Planes are packed, and airports are getting busier and busier. Half this country has had enough with the mask idiocy. It is an idiocy. It's scientifically useless. Read my column a couple of weeks ago. I quote the New England Journal of Medicine from last year. Masks serve as two things: a magic wand among those who were governed by irrational fear, and a way of saying to others, I am a better human being than you. Most mask wearers outdoors certainly believe they are superior human beings to those of us who do not wear masks outdoors. Is that not correct? Which is fine, because we don't think we're superior human beings, just for the record. We think that we are governed less by fear and intimidated less by irrational authorities. I spoke on behalf this weekend. I spoke at a rally in Burbank, California, one of the police state cities of this country. The entire city council of Burbank and mayor should resign. But it's always been that way, as far as I recall, Burbank. Burbank suppresses freedom in the name of health. By the way, every totalitarian regime has an excuse for the deprivation of people of freedom. There's always a reason. So health has now become the reason. What are you going to argue? You're for sickness, right? So half of America has decided that liberty is secondary to safe. Why have I said for decades, health über alles? I know false gods when I see them. I have a false god Geiger counter built into me. So this is what is happening. Israel has announced that there will be no more mandate to wear masks out because so many people have been vaccinated. I have only had criticism for Israel the entire time. I think it panicked out like other countries, more so in some cases. But at least they're doing this. No more mandate of mask wearing outdoors. And Dr. Fauci, I have to be careful because the low esteem in which I hold him and the belief of the damage this man has done to this society is so great that I have to be careful with my description. So I won't describe him. I already told you what I think he's done. He has said that even after you're vaccinated, you should wear a mask. And I find it remarkable how many Americans find that logical. Has there ever been an example in history of after vaccination, you're not being protected against the illness? Of course not. And by the way, I don't understand why there will ever be these, now that there are vaccines, why will there ever be a vaccine passport? Why do you care if I'm vaccinated if you are? That's why this thing has nothing to do with science. That's BS. It has to do with control. People are angry at me for not having been vaccinated. Why are you angry at me? If you believe in the vaccine, my chances of dying are infinitely greater than yours. What do you care? I've never gotten an answer to that. If you're vaccinated, why do you care if somebody else isn't? If you got the polio vaccine, would you not stay with someone who had polio? It would be irrelevant to you, correct? That's who had polio. If you were not vaccinated against polio, would you, or measles? By the way, I never understood why we're vaccinated against measles. Did measles kill anybody? Did chickenpox kill anybody? We shouldn't have vaccines against everything because it's best to develop antibodies on your own. I remember having chicken pox. I was a kid in elementary school. It's the only time I ever had a week off from school. That's how I looked at it. I figured I figured like this. You know what? It does itch. There's no question. Chicken pox itch. So you scratch a lot. And I thought, even as a guy, I thought about these things. I don't know. I'm in fourth grade, and I thought, I'll scratch in order to miss school. It was a trade-off I was completely willing to make. Ask most kids, you willing to have a bad itch for a week, but legitimately miss school? To this day, I identify snowfall at night with the possibility of not having school the next day. That is how I regard snow. Will it stick? That was the only question in my vocabulary at the time. If it's stuck, those of you who live in snow areas know what I mean. Those of you who live in Mississippi may not know what I mean. If it's stuck on the ground, then it could accumulate, and at a certain level, you didn't have it the next day. My dear friends, my happiness hour on Friday was about doing two things in this very dark time in American history, and that is getting out of the closet, speaking out, fighting, and finding kindred spirits. I was speaking to a young woman at Harvard. I had her on the show once, and then she's going to be on a few times coming up this summer, who was intellectually turned around by my works and PragerU. She's quite bright. And we had a talk yesterday, my wife, she and I. She's at Harvard. And I kept telling her, you've got to find kindred spirits. She has come out of the closet completely at Harvard, which is we'll talk to her on the air when she comes back. She's from Los Angeles area. What is it like to come out of the closet as a student? It doesn't matter if it's Harvard or Boise State. It's irrelevant. It's the same exact experience. So she found out about a conservative debate club. I asked her, I'm going to ask you, this is great, I'm going to ask my producer, how many members of Harvard conservative debate club do you think there are? Well, Triple G, what do you think? How many members in the conservative debate club at Harvard? The answers I got were 3 and 0. I'm tempted to say average 3 plus 0. No, there were actually 10. Now, so I asked her, because, I always pursue these things. So I asked her, who were they? And she said, well, now that you mention it, they were all Christian except one Jew. And then I said, was he Orthodox? She said, yes. That's why the left hates religion. It is the only organized opposition to the left on earth. And, of course, most Christians and Jews have been leftized, so they're irrelevant. But where there is organized opposition, there are secularists who oppose it, who love freedom. There are atheists who love freedom, of course. But the only organized opposition to the left, the group that is protecting liberty in the West today is called religious. Religious Jews, religious Christians. The conservative debate club at Harvard is a perfect example. 1-8-PRAGER-776. I'm Dennis Prager.